folks, and welcome back to my channel. I am sitting down today with Thea, one of the jewelry stylists at Bury Me in Gold here in Seattle, Washington, and also one of the recipients of the Front of House Scholarship. And you're not just receiving the Front of House Scholarship, right? You are also a recipient of the Person of Color Scholarship to Conference.
Yes, and I'm so grateful that these two organizations let me keep both, and I'm so honored to be able to represent both.
So, how did it feel winning both of these scholarships?
It felt really surreal because I did not think I was going to be able to keep both. So I was really, really happy knowing that not only that I got to keep both, but I'm able to represent both. Being a woman of color in the industry and showing people that there are more pathways other than being a piercer, it just really means a lot to me.
So let's get into that a little bit more. How long have you been in the industry now?
I've been in the industry professionally since December of 2022. But you know, I've been a client in piercing studios for many years, since I was 14. So I've been in this industry for a long time, or I've been able to been introduced to it, or I've been a part of it.
Yeah. And so what got you started being interested working in the industry?
Actually, what got me started was going to these studios, and I kept having these experiences of kind of like being let down.
Yup.
Felt that one. And I thought to myself, if I was behind the counter, I would be making myself feel a lot more comfortable and a lot better than I feel right now as a client. And that, with the love of body modifications, I sort of just took the leap and applied to counter position, and ever since then, I've been working in the industry.
And was piercing ever anything you thought about, or has it always been like styling and front of house work?
I think that when you start in this industry, that's always like in the back of your mind, you know, but for me, I really love what I do. I really love being able to interact with clients. I think that's the biggest thing for me. And so I've been falling in love with styling and being front of house and being kind of the first thing that people see and get the experience, like chance to talk to. I think it's really important. It's a really important role to be the first experience of, let's say, like somebody's getting their first piercing, and like you're the first thing they talk to. You're the first introduction to the industry. That's really important. I don't think that should be undervalued.
Yes, absolutely. When I think about one of the worst experiences I had as a client in an APP member studio when I was probably like 18, it was a bad experience with front of house. I was going in for a jewelry change on my cheek piercings, and it was a very busy studio. It was a very busy day. I'd already waited in line for like 2 hours outside of the studio just to get in to be seen for this. And I get in and I'm like, this is what I'm looking for. I was like, wanted to ask about seeing some of their other jewelry because I just waited for like 2 hours. So I want to see if it was there. And they were like, well, are you going to buy something for your other piercings, or are you just looking? And I was like, I don't know. Like, it depends on what you have. Like, I don't know if you, like, I don't know. And they were like, well, then we'll just sign you in for the cheek piercings. And they handed me a thing of mouthwash, and they were like, since it's an oral piercing, rinse, and then the piercer will come get you. And that was the only instruction I was given. So I was just handed a cup of mouthwash. I was like, okay. And like rinsed, and I spit back in the cup. And then I was like, hey, well, like, where do you want me to dispose of this? And the front of house was like, ugh, you were supposed to go in the bathroom and rinse. I can't believe you did that up front. And I just felt dumb and bad and small and not good. Absolutely. And the piercer was fairly nice, but the experience, I'd been made to feel so small by the front of house that I was already having a bad experience kind of no matter what happened. So I really think front of house, like, if someone comes in nervous, they're who can start calming them down and hyping them up. If someone comes in with a lot of questions, you answer. I mean, I think so many people discount the knowledge
Absolutely.
that front of house have coming into a studio, even just in terms of anatomy, some levels of troubleshooting. Like here at Laughing Buddha, our consultants do like half of the anatomy checks. If it's on the ear, they are knowledgeable enough to do that anatomy check.
I mean, there's a reason why we're behind the counter, right? We're not just a pretty face to get you checked in. We know things about this industry. We work with piercers. We work with, you know, we work with people, and we get taught a lot. And one, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Oh my God. But two, as a front of house, or as anybody working with people, with clients, I always remember and I always keep in mind, I am seeing people like dozens, hundreds, thousands, whatever. I'm seeing people a lot throughout the day, but they're only seeing me once, right? And they're only getting the experience once. What I think that you need to remember as a person, just like dealing with clients, dealing with people, is that their experience, they have that one experience with you. I know that you see a lot of people, but they're gonna remember it. So it doesn't matter, like, if you don't truly like people, if you don't truly want what's best for them, maybe this isn't the industry for you. This is so intimate and personable. Like, you should care.
You should care. And I think people discount how much intimacy and personal interaction front of house and consultants have with the clients. It's, I mean, these days in a high-end piercing studio, yes, piercers are executing the piercings, but in order to do a decent number of piercings today at our highest skill level, we're so busy learning more on anatomy and more on techniques and more on stuff that we don't have the time to have the type of jewelry knowledge that the front of house and stylists do. I could not stay attuned enough to do like the complex genital and ear work that I do, and also be staying abreast of like what stones are coming out, what designs are coming out, like what options they're available in, who you can order them from, how long it's gonna take. So these days, especially in studios like yours that are doing a lot of these like very high-end, beautiful curations, it's like a true collaboration. Like the piercer, in order to remain a good piercer, has to focus on piercing. So they need their stylist to be focusing on the jewelry part of things and have that knowledge of gemstones and designs. And I mean, I would say these days, most good jewelry stylists and consultants end up more accredited than piercers, because these days most of you are going to the GIA classes and getting your AJP and doing literally more textbook learning than piercers are.
I like to say being a front of house is such a fun mix of like a gemologist, but you're also in sales, but you're also in hospitality. There is so much to learn, and GIA is a big part of that. I have a good story, actually. I have a really good story. There were two clients, and their mother had just passed away like recently, and they walk up to the display case, and I see tears like starting to well in their eyes, and they see like a hummingbird piece, and they're like our mother's like spirit animal like was a hummingbird. We need to have that hummingbird. And so people, they oftentimes really discredit how meaningful jewelry can be, how meaningful like these stones and these designs can be to them. Really, jewelry is an art piece that it's a story, and it's an art piece that you wear on your body 24/7, 365. And so being able to have the knowledge of like what these genuine stones can mean to people, or what these designs can mean to people, to help further them in their store, or help empower them, that means a lot to me as a jewelry stylist, front of house.
Yeah, and you and Angie do a lot of that at Bury Me in Gold. I've seen some of the like indigenous collections you put together with like particular stones for like cultural celebrations and stuff. So I'm sure it feels so good to be able to bring that into piercing for folks.
Absolutely. And like, you know, ordering jade for like Chinese clients, or like turquoise for native clients, it means a lot. Being able to recognize these gemstones not only are they beautiful, but they're also culturally significant. So learning about that kind of empowers me as a stylist because it gives me the knowledge of what matters to my clients.
So obviously we're very excited to have you at conference as part of the front of house scholarship and get to take classes and things like that. And I'm personally really excited that conference has so many front of house class offerings this year. But I always try and be very honest with my viewers. I know there's some negative experiences to working front of house and being in this industry. And I know piercers like me, piercers are kind of part of the problem. How has that experience been for you in the industry?
Oh man, honestly gut-wrenching. Yeah. Really discrediting and really, really sad. If we want the rest of the world to take us seriously, we need to take each other seriously, right? And so to have piercers not even look me in the eyes, or not even a simple thank you when I give them jewelry, it hurts my feelings a lot. It hurts a lot. I think that I'm not the only front of house to have the experience of not feeling valued or not being listened to when it comes to like what's happening in the studio or like what's happening with a client or, you know, big decisions. And it's like we're there in the studio as much as everyone else, sometimes even longer. Like we're cleaning, we're setting up, so it's like we are going through the same things and we're dealing with the same clients. It's hard. It's to not be taken seriously.
It is. I worked front of house for my first about 8 years in the industry.
No way.
I mean, I had 3 apprenticeships, so I was in apprenticeships for about 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. And so I was working front of house that whole time. Mm-hmm. And then at the studio that I finally finished my apprenticeship in, I worked both front of house and piercing shifts. So I still did both, and I continued to do coverage doing both throughout like guesting and traveling. Yeah. So I've absolutely had that experience of just feeling very disrespected by piercers or tattoo artists, especially tattoo artists. And just being treated like my opinion or my knowledge didn't matter a lot of the times. And it sucks. And I hate to say it, but I would say that in probably the majority of the industry, like front of house are still not respected or given the respect they deserve as studios or paid like an actual living wage for the amount of labor that they do. Mm-hmm. And I'm grateful that especially in like APP studios and higher end studios, that is changing. For sure. And that is getting better. But fun fact, out of the 30 odd applicants I had for the front of house scholarship this year, over 2/3 of them were from APP studios.
There's this weird, I don't know what it is, but maybe it's because we're in such a creative field, but there's this weird attitude of like, you need to suffer this much to be taken this seriously.
Yes.
No, this industry, this is, you know, at the end of the day, this is what we do for a living. We need to be professional. And how professional is it when you're disrespectful to like your front of house, your staff? It's so weird. But just going back to being front of house, I feel like when you're in a creative industry, but you're not the artist, you know, quote unquote, people are so confused to what you do or like what your occupation is. That's kind of like asking a ship hand, like if they're not the captain, what do they do?
Keep the ship running.
It's like
it's definitely better in APP studios, to be sure, like significantly better than others. Like I've definitely been at and worked at like, you know, I would say like lower end studios where they're just like, oh, you mean the counter bitch? And it's like, oh,
that's cute.
Yeah, like thanks. Or studios who only view this as like a stepping stone to get a tattoo or piercing apprenticeship. Like it's not its own career path, but especially these days, like tattoo artists and piercers, we rely on our front of house to be able to manage the level of clients and the level of work we're doing. Actually, as like a traveling piercer, I could not do that without the fact that I'm guessing at studios that have really good front of house.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I am showing up, and the first thing I do is go up to the front of house and be like, hi, I know I'm gonna need you this week, so please, if there's anything I can do to make your life easier, let me know, because I know I'm gonna forget where everything is. I'm not gonna know how you guys do things. Like, I know I'm gonna be leaning on you. Like,
and thank you for that. I know I'm saying thank you, but really that should be the bare minimum.
It
right?
should be.
Where,
and as someone who's managed studios and dealt with a lot of guest artists, it is not. Because the biggest struggle as a management I would have with guest artists is the consultants in front of house coming to me and being like, the artist is not checking in with us, they're not communicating with us, they're not asking us where things are, they're just spending like 10 minutes looking for something.
Yes.
When it's like, well, we know exactly where the 18-gauge 5/16 posts are.
Like, is it a pride thing? Is it like a, oh, I don't need to waste my time on these people thing? It's absurd. I've definitely dealt with piercers who have been like who walk into the studio and like pretend that they don't see you.
I think you're so right, and I dealt with that myself when I worked front of house, and I've really made it a point to try and not be that way myself as a piercer. And as someone who, like, at one point in my career, I thought I wanted to stay on front of house.
Yeah,
I actually, fun fact, I love everyone at Cowpoke so much. I interviewed at Cowpoke in 2019, and when I was there, they were like, oh, we have this crack team of consultants, which they do. The Cowpoke front of house staff is, like, insane. Potentially some of the best front of house staff I think I've ever gotten the chance to work with. But when I was interviewing there, I was like, oh, I'd still really want to, like, do stuff up front and be involved in up front, and they were like, I don't know if that's going to work for our workflow. And now I understand, now it makes sense. Now that's also the way I work, and I realized that in trying to do both, I was kind of sacrificing piercing a little bit, but I loved the counter so much, and I loved like designing jewelry pieces and seeing them come in, and that feeling when a client walked up front with an ear that I had styled, and I got to like run up and look and like everything, like I picked out all the pieces, I picked out like just about all of the placement. Some of the pieces I like designed myself. I communicated with BBLA and sent a million emails getting a perfect piece, and the piercer is basically just like following my directions. If we're being honest, I drafted the whole thing, they're just putting the puzzle together. And then that collaboration happens where the piercer sees the anatomy and maybe is like, oh, I moved this conch to like an outer conch, and I like tweaked the way this helix is gonna sit, and so you see like your knowledge of jewelry and styling and their knowledge of like the technical elements of piercing, and it comes together, and you look at the person's ear and you're like, it's better than I could have imagined.
It came to life.
And it feels like being a composer, I would say, who gets to listen to the orchestra play your piece for the first time. Like, you've designed it, you've put in all the work to putting it together, and composing it and styling it, and then the musicians are bringing it to life. Like, the stylists in studios these days do all that composition, and then the piercers bring it to life. But I wish we credited the stylists more, and I wish people saw how satisfying of a job that in and of itself could be. Like, there is a part of me that misses getting to play with the jewelry to that level.
I would too.
And I'm blessed to work in so many studios with amazing stylists where they bring me these curations, and I'm like, oh my god, this is like sick, this is gonna be so cool. But I do miss that element of it as much as I love getting to be technical and focusing on piercing, and that does make me a better piercer. It's fun to get to do that.
It is also just, do you know how gratifying it is, like, when somebody is like, I want this, and it's a picture of an ear that you styled, and you're like, oh, I know a few things about that ear, actually.
Just so you know.
Or like, when I post my curations online to see the comments and be like, this is my dream ear, this is exactly what I want. Oh my gosh. And to be able to play around with the jewelry, because it is an art form, right? Like the ear is a canvas and all these jewelry pieces are my brush strokes, paint, whatever, but to have muses and just to bring it to life in kind of a tangible way. Like your jewelry stylists let you wear your art every single day.
Oh, I love that. So what would you say to people who are thinking about getting into this industry, but who've maybe felt like piercing is the only path, or maybe are interested in working front of house, but not sure if that's like a viable long-term career?
What I would say is no matter where you go, you deserve respect. You deserve respect. And if you feel like you're not being taken seriously or your work isn't valued, it's time to go. I would say get into this industry if you, not because you want to pierce people, not because you want to just play around with pretty jewelry all day, but because you genuinely care about your clients and about bettering their life in such an extraordinary creative way. If you are interested in being front of house, know that I'm really fortunate enough to work in a studio where my contributions, my efforts, and my role is taken seriously, are taken seriously, but that might not be the case for everybody. But the great thing about this industry is that it's ever evolving, it's ever changing, and more, I mean, the proof is, you know, now we have a scholarship for us. More and more piercers, industry professionals are taking front of house counter seriously. We're not lesser than piercers, we're equal to piercers. This is another, you know, occupation in this ever-growing industry, and it's not a stepping stone to becoming a piercer. It is another job title that should and deserves the same respect as anything else.
And what we need more of is dedicated, devoted, passionate, motivated front of house who are going to get into this industry, and we're not going to sugarcoat it for you. It's definitely a little bit rough out there right now for front of house, but the more people who come in and say, I'm going to do an amazing job at this, I'm going to design all this jewelry, I'm going to get jewelry degrees and gemstone degrees and do social media and content, all of these things, and I'm going to demand the respect I deserve for putting in all of this labor for studios, and I'm going to demand from organizations to be respected as an equal, the more progress I think we'll make in that direction. And I definitely hopefully see a future 5 or 10 years from now where front of house are their own membership type in the APP, where they have an equal amount of classes and opportunities, where more front of house are making a living wage working at front of house, and where it is seen as its own career path.
Absolutely.
And an essential part of studios, right there next to piercers and tattoo artists. Studios also need their front of house and their management to run smoothly.
Absolutely. I mean, without front of house, I think the ship just goes down.
It definitely does. Even when we just have like an understaffed front of house day here at Laughing Buddha, all of the artists are like, what do we do?
It's like a... No, I love being a babysitter for my piercers.
Literally. I'm gonna put that meme in there that's like the giant like guardian thing. It's like front of house protecting the piercer from a lobby full of college girls. And the tiny damsel behind it is the piercer.
Yeah. Have you seen that picture where it's like, go get me like my purse, or like it's like Beyonce like standing in front of Jay-Z, and Jay-Z's like
or the one of the women like holding her boyfriend and pointing at someone, and it's like front of house to a rude client and they're holding their piercer.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, like, when I first started getting recognized for my work, to have piercers or to have people just come up to me and be like, I love your work, I love your stylings, I love what you do, it gave me, I mean, just being honest, like such this sense of imposter syndrome. But but I think, especially like as front of house, it's just important to remember that you're doing good work too, and you're making your own contributions too. Just because you're not piercing somebody doesn't mean you're not changing their day. It doesn't mean that you're not adding to their experience. Oh, and don't date piercers.
Honestly, true facts. Don't date tattoo artists
Don't
either.
date tattoo artists. Don't date piercers. Date outside of this industry is my best advice for front of house, actually.
All right, folks, thanks so much for hanging out and chatting with us. And if you are interested in more information about getting into the industry as front of house, I'm gonna link my blog post about that here. And if you're interested in more information about the front of house scholarship, I'm also gonna link that in the caption down below. Applications are obviously closed for 2024. We've already have our wonderful winners. There's 4 folks attending conference this year, but applications for 2025 will open up in the fall of this year. That way you have plenty of time to prepare and get all of the materials together, and you can find all the information about that on my website. Special thank you to all of my Patreon subscribers. As many of you know, I don't take donations for the front of house scholarship because I want those donations to go to other scholarships that need it more, like the POC scholarship and the Black Piercer Party scholarship. So that scholarship is funded primarily through my Patreon. Also shout out to Cowpoke and Maya, who sponsored it this year. We love them. So without my Patreon, I wouldn't be able to put this on. So thank you all so much for making it possible to send so many amazing counter babies to conference. And I can't wait to sit down and chat with all of y'all soon. Bye.
That.
Wait, I'm so sorry. That's what editing is for. You're fine. I can flip the camera off right now, and I'm just gonna edit it out. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Okay. We're just gonna cut all this out.
Cool. Perfect.
The final thing will be 10 minutes long and perfect, and all of this will be gone into the digital ether.
Bye. That's cute.